Hello everyone, glad to have you here. Punky's looking up at me. You want to say hi? Come here, Punk. Come on up. Let's say hi. There we go. Yeah, come and look. Here's Punky waving at you. She's getting mad. We're talking about eyes today, and I'm going to be ultimately talking about how to look at icons and how they can look at us. And so I decided to do a little bit of a study on eyes in mythology and came up with some really interesting things. There's a Rubens painting, which I will show you now on my iPhone. See, the thing is, what we can find in mythology really predicates what is in reality God's presence. And so I'm going to try to do that today and then end up with showing you an icon and how to look at it, how to really see. So we're talking about eyes. So here's an example of really I was looking at, I hope you can see it, it's Peter Paul Rubens, and it's called Juno and Argus, and it's Greek mythology. And the woman, if you look, the bottom of her skirt are feathers, peacock feathers. I happen to love peacocks, and my family estate in Wales have had peacocks for 400 years. Anyway, they're peacocks, and the bottom of her body it looks like this, and I'm not sure, it's hard to tell, but there's a head of some man in her hand. And I don't know the full story. I'll look it up and get back to you on it. But this is where I'm starting today, about looking and seeing and the third eye. So let's go back and let's see if I can show you another interesting mythological creature. Here he is. His name was Argos Panoptes. Argos. And he's a man with eyes all over his body. How about that? So eyes have always been a really important thing. And they are also fully developed within the early Christian church in understanding how to open yourself and look at Jesus and open yourself to God. So I continued on this little rabbit trail, which I love to do. And there's a website that scared me. There are 5 signs and symptoms that your third eye is opening on Google. A dull sensation of pressure between your eyebrows. The third eye would be right there. Increased foresight. A dull sensation of pressure between the eyebrows. Already says that. Increased foresight. Prone to light sensitivity. A feeling of gradual and continual change. And increased headaches. Nice. Isn't that really pleasant? What happens when the third eye opens? The third eye gives the ability to communicate telepathically with other awakened people. And this is where it gets creepy, to see the spirits of the dead and even to receive messages from higher beings. This is the, in Christian terms, Judeo-Christian terms, the evil alternative. This is clairvoyance, it's witchcraft. And that isn't what I'm talking about today. In fact, I kind of spooked myself out because, if I can show it to you, let's see if it'll do it. Yeah. I was looking at the blackboard above my back door. Thank goodness I have a 19th century rug beater that's in the shape of a trinity, and below it the rooster freaked me out. I thought it looked like a third eye. I got really freaked. Anyway, I've been doing this too much. So let's go on. So I'm trying to see if I can find you. There was here's interesting, why you should never open your third eye. when the third eye opens you, high levels of energy are being received through your third eye in your physical body. The physical body and the third eye chakra is not used to so much energy and needs to be released. Some people experience headaches and other unsettling experiences. That isn't what I'm talking about today. What I'm talking about is the ability to see God's presence in our life. And I'm going to start with a really funny thing I found in a thrift store, which is, I remember seeing them in Denmark in the 70s. They were very popular ceramic art. And it's a really cool thing. It was in 2 pieces. I had to re-glue it, but it's wonderful. And after looking up the third eye and all this, it started creeping me out, and then I realized it wasn't. It's really quite hilarious. It's a little bit like Argos with the eyes all over the place, and below his chin is a Trinitarian 3 eyes. And to me, it's the joy that we get when we experience God's presence in our life and we're able to open ourselves and see what He is doing in ourselves and others, even in this moment of crisis. As a friend of mine said yesterday, I'm repeating myself, but he called it our bubble of chaos. And my kitchen is chaos, as you can see. And I'm just letting it be as it is, because it is the coronavirus. You know, what will life be without a corona? Drink up, my friend. And it's very lonely out here, and I can't really see any of my kids. My daughter works in a hospital, and if we do see each other, it's at least at 10 feet apart out in the yard, never in the house. Can't even come in and use the bathroom. So I got this little, I grew up with 1 cow when I remember when I was really little, when I was adopted. And so I decided, I was at a farm store and saw this, and I thought I needed some noise besides Punky meowing, and so I will demonstrate for you. It's quite fun. That's a Trinitarian move for all of you that are watching. Okay, so I'm going to do something I haven't done before. I'm going to try to lift this camera up and show you something on top of the refrigerator. And appropriately, it's next to the cat food. And a lot of third eyes are shown on cats. And that's probably where you get the word cat has 9 lives. And then I'm going to tell you a funny story about sayings in a minute. I found out something today that's just hilarious that I've heard all my life in my family mythology. Anyway, this ceramic, it's just so joyful and fun, and so I'm going to try doing it. This guy knows God's pleasure and His joy in living and seeing it in others, so I'm going to try to do this. So just bear with me. You can stand looking at me. Yeah, wrong way. I'm going to reverse the camera here, and let's see what happens. There we go. There he is. I don't know what his name is yet. I haven't figured it out. He looks really fun, and he's funny, and I like him, and he's wonderful. You can put flowers in him, so he looks like he's growing a huge mohawk. The first bouquet I put in were mustard seeds, because the mustard seed, such a wonderful symbol of faith, and I wanted to see how long it took for mustard seed flowers to turn to seed, and they did. They didn't wilt as long as they had water, and they began to turn to seed. They just kind of dry up, and then the seeds blow away. So I think that's a living parable. Anyway, that's my friend. I'm not sure what his name is yet. I haven't named him. I may yet. So let's go back, and we'll go back. We can do it. Note that behind my icon is Glimfeather the owl, looking over, trying to give you wisdom. So I'm going to put this down, and we can start talking about this icon. You won't see me, you'll just see the icon. To do it, I think we need to light the candle, and then I can help you understand how to do this, or at least help you. I put the piece of white cardboard to help you focus on the eye and not just the whole image, because it's too hard. It's very hard to look at icons and to really see them without and praying with them. When it says when we're together in the sanctuary that we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, well, that's what's behind icons. So when you go into a Russian Orthodox church, you're surrounded, there we go, you're surrounded by all kinds of saints who are glorified in heaven. I'm going to go up a little closer. And I'm sorry the light isn't better. This is the best I can do in here today. But if you look very closely, Jesus' eyes, the two are different. And this started with about 2 weeks ago when I was really feeling lonely and I started praying. I decided to put this icon in the kitchen. I've had it all over the house, and it's one of my great treasures. It was painted by John Snogren, who is a Pratt-trained artist and did constructions made out of junk. And he later became Orthodox and now is a monk and paints icons in a monastery somewhere up in New England. Anyway, this is I am the way, the truth, and the life, Christ, surrounded by a halo, and it's all made with semi-precious stone pigment and gold in egg tempera. It's not oil, it's egg tempera, and that's the traditional way. It's very fragile, and mine actually needs some restoration because just humidity changes make it flake a bit, and I don't like having glass over it because I want it to be direct. Well, if you look at the eye for a while, you'll see, first of all, I was looking in the mirror. This is how it started. I was looking in the mirror at myself, and I realized that the eye to my right, when I look at myself in the mirror, which would really, my right eye, when I look in the mirror, I'm not sure. Anyway, my right eye looks bigger than my left eye. And I think probably if you look at most people, one eye is different from the other. And this is very true with iconography. So the right eye, as you see it, would be Jesus' left eye, is an eye of judgment. His right eye is an eye of mercy. And for the longest time when I've looked at this, the eye of judgment has always come into me. And since, even while I'm talking now, it's changing. Since I've experienced some inner healing from my early childhood abandonment, I can, just now that I'm talking, it starts the left eye, his right eye, but the left eye comes forward. It's the eye of mercy. And if you remember, there's something really specific about this, and I'll show you. I'm getting it here. This is kind of a funny icon, but I'll have to switch the camera here for a second. It was a gift, and I love it, and it's quite wonderful, but it looks like an electric light switch cover, and I'm trying to figure out if I could do that. But it tells a story, again, and up at the top is the face of Christ on a cloth. And we're pretty sure it's the image on the Shroud of Turin, which used to be folded in a case in Byzantium. The case is still there over a door. These are cherubim worshiping Jesus on the cross. And then there's Mary and John. I'm not sure. Wait a minute. This is the soldier with the spear. These are the soldiers, and this is Mary, the two Marys. Oh yeah, the soldier and John and the two Marys. And then if you notice, the footrest across here is always this way. And in this one, the footrest has, and behind her there's a marking of the city wall. And what it is it's actually historically accurate. The Holy Sepulchre, the place where Christ was buried and where the cross was inside the wall, and they used to think that the location now is not the same. It was not right. But they discovered that at the time he was outside the city walls. So this is showing that it's outside. It's on a hill outside the city walls. The other thing that it's showing down at the bottom is the skull, and that's the burial place of Adam. And that's also in the Holy Sepulchre. You can go down, there's a cave down underneath. And the other thing is that I don't know if you saw the National Geographic explanation of the Holy Sepulchre, but they've discovered that way down underneath, really early, is a burial place with a cross on it. So it is, I think with pretty much without very much doubt, it is the place that Jesus was crucified and rose again. But in all cases, like Albert Schweitzer and his search for the historical Jesus, there's a wonderful hymn that I've sung in choir, and it began my search, like Lewis and Wagner, to finding true spirituality and in God, in Christ. And his search for the historical Jesus emphasized the fact that we are to existentially experience Jesus living from day to day, not just the historical, even though the historical it's as far as I'm concerned, is very important, because we are bodies. We live in creation. We are incarnational. And one of the real scandals, I think, of faithful believers is to have ambivalence toward what Darwin discovered. If you really look at what Darwin discovered, all he discovered is that which exists. And having gone through some psychiatric treatment now, and finding out that there are physical connections to trauma when you're young, they did a study. I mentioned this last night, I'm going to mention it again. They did a study on the grandchildren of Holocaust victims, or people that were at least in prison during that time, and there's kind of a genetic thing that happens in your body. It becomes part of your DNA, and it can be changed through medication and through counseling, but it stays there, and as the Bible says, the sins of the fathers go on to the third and fourth generation. Also, really interesting is that in Lewis, his whole journey was from his brain to his heart, and for those two to come together. And as I mentioned about Rabbadash last night, I'll mention it again today, because I came across a verse this morning that was just amazing, confirming that. Anyway, so the reason the cross piece is at an angle is pointing up to the thief. It points up to the thief that said he believed, and Jesus said, "Today you shall be with me in paradise." And he's leaning toward that thief. So Abigail says she always thought it was a light switch cover. I think it is too, but but it isn't. It isn't. It's just that the whole story is in a complete circle. It's telling more of a story than just without the figures. There's what you usually see when you see an Orthodox cross, and this usually isn't quite as big, and there's that at the top. Anyway, so going on, and that's Orthodox censer in the background. If I could have managed it, I would have had some incense brewing, but the Easter Bunny's watching it, so can't do it. All right, we're going to go back to the icon now. This is the more important thing. So, this is just a sentimental picture to remind me of people, families and people that I love. On the left is a bouquet that I made for Abigail and Nathan's wedding, and I dried it and kept it. And then below it is a little wall-mounted thing for holy water for baptism. And then the one on the right was given to me by a family who had his children go out and collect it, and just as a present for coronavirus time. And to me it symbolizes all the families that I pray for, and the people that are closest to me that have been affected. So now, looking at Jesus, let's see if we can get him, I can get him enlarged. So the right eye, the right eye looking at him, his left eye is the eye of judgment, and the right eye is the eye of mercy. And as I've gone through healing, the eyes have become more prominent, like the eye of mercy has come forward and the eye of judgment has gone back. Sometimes they go back and forward, but they're always both present. in our relationship to God. So what about the third eye? To me, the third eye is being able to see this, being able to look and pray with an icon. The idea of an icon is so different from our Western view. Our Western view is influenced by Plato and philosophy, and so a Western view is a much more naturalistic view with a horizon in the distance. That's how a painting works. This is the opposite. It's looking at you. So when you pray with an icon, you sit and listen and allow the saint or Jesus to not communicate with you, but to look into your soul and allow your heart to be affected. And that's the difference. Early Christianity and Eastern Orthodoxy is all centered in the heart. It includes the mind, but Rome and Western approach is through philosophy, through Plato. It's much more of it borders on a Gnosticism where the body is really not important except the Eucharist. And the whole thing is just, it's really interesting, and it affects how we visualize Christ in our lives. So I hope this helps you to see. You can look up a reproduction of one of these types of icons and you can study. There's a wonderful book by Henry Nouwen called Behold the Beauty of the Lord, and I don't have a copy of it here right now, but he selects 4 icons, different ones, and shows you how to read them, because they're read, they're not seen. You read, and you allow it to speak into you, and he shows you how to do it, and it really helped me a lot. The icon of the Holy Trinity is one of them, which is really wonderful, and he explains how the iconography takes your eye into Christ, being lovingly surrounded by the Father and the Son, and how there's a circle of love is formed, just like this, the O and the Greek letters, the W-O, and how that it almost sets the face back into a niche, and it's almost like he's in the center of like a concave, which goes in, concave or convex, anybody know? Concave, I think. A concave space, so that his eye and the outline of the cross within the halo brings his face forward, so that he can, it's to help bring the saint to you. In other words, the saint is kind of coming through the back of the wood, through the hand of the artist. The light around Christ's eyes in this one is actually pure ground crystal. It's really an amazing thing, and I hope that this has helped, and we'll keep talking about it, but it's not brain, it's heart. And in the Eastern Church, scriptures are held just as high as they are in the West, but it's through the heart, not the brain, that we encounter God. So the third eye and chakras and all this, and if you want, there's something called the New Luxury something, and it's all about 105 different tattoos of the third eye, and they're all really creepy. And the third eye is supposedly our way of being able to tap into human consciousness without God. But I think the third eye is for us, we're given, when Christ lives in us, he looks straight at us, and that his power and his presence flow through our eyes into us and down into our hearts, not just our brain. It bypasses our brain, it goes right down into our hearts and includes our mind. That was a struggle with Lewis, and I'll talk more about it tonight. And tomorrow, I'm going to show you how to curate and make a powder room into a little mini art gallery with just things you have, and innovation. Just being trapped in my house makes me very creative. That's one way to, with a vengeance, try to deal with this loneliness. So I'm so glad you're all here today. It helps me to know that you guys are here having fun, and I hope that your day goes well, and God bless you. I'll see you tonight at 7. We're going to talk a little bit more about Rabadash and some reflections on Lewis and his spiritual journey, and then we will start Prince Caspian. So thank you all for watching and listening, and love to hear from you whenever you wish. Thank you. Goodbye. God bless.